So this is an overview of the Wilson Reading System by Kaylee Carmichael. Some background history of Wilson. The Wilson Reading System was originally written by Barbara Wilson in 1988, and it was specifically for adults with dyslexia. It was published by the Wilson Language Training Corporation in Oxford, Massachusetts. Since that time, there have been several additions to the program, and it's mainly used for students that are beyond the elementary level that have not yet internalized the sound and word structure of the English language. It's based on the multisensory language approach that was first originated by Dr. Samuel Orton, Anna Gillingham, and Bessie Stillman. So why choose WRS as a method of intervention? The Wilson Reading System directly and systematically teaches students how to fluently and accurately decode words. It's unlike traditional phonics programs in that the instruction is very interactive and it's multisensory. It also thoroughly teaches total word construction, not just phonics. So students are learning to encode as they are learning to decode. And then it also incorporates comprehension, fluency, and vocabulary within the program. So who benefits from Wilson Reading? Students with learning disabilities in reading, specifically dyslexia, really benefit from this program. In addition, students that are unable to decode accurately, those are your slow, labored readers who lack fluency in their reading, and they may know words by sight but have difficulty reading new words and nonsense syllables. And these are the students that often guess. They frequently guess at words when reading. In addition to this, it's students that are independently reading 2 or more grade levels below their current grade, and they are able to speak and understand English but not necessarily read or write it, such as ESL students could benefit from this program. In addition, it's students that have good listening comprehensions but that have difficulty with spelling and they're poor spellers. And then students that are unsuccessful with other reading programs or still have gaps in their decoding and spelling abilities will also benefit from Wilson Reading. So where to begin getting started? The Wilson Language Training recommends its specific training for teachers so that the program is properly implemented. So it does recommend a certification, level 1 certification in Wilson. Using the instructor's manual, a teacher's binder and student notebook, and individual Wilson Reading magnetic board and other magnetized Wilson Reading word cards are definitely beneficial to the program. Also, Wilson Reading has lesson plans that can be adapted for individual or group instruction, and then other teaching tools and student assessment, placement, and pacing. So the scope and sequence. There are 12 steps with many sub-steps within this program. Steps 1 and 2 emphasize phonological awareness, blending, segmenting, 1-syllable words with up to 6 sounds. Also incorporated within steps 1 and 2 are finger tapping. Steps 3 is 2 or more closed syllables, and steps 4 and 5 are long vowels, vowel, consonant, E, and open syllables. Most students will start in steps 1.3 in the student reader, and that's if they're weak in decoding or spelling, but they have a reading score at grade level 2 or above. Specifically, older students will begin here if they know most of the consonant sounds, even if they don't know their short vowel sounds or they struggle with short vowel sounds. And then some students will also start at step 1.1, and those are your students that don't know the consonant sounds, like they are non-readers and they are reading below grade 2. and then how fast to move, you'll need to find a balance between proceeding too slowly and going too fast, but the student should master each sub-step before you proceed to the next sub-step. And mastery is achieved when a student reads approximately 95% of the real and nonsense words correctly without prompting and spells approximately 75 to 80% of those words correctly. But that pace will vary in student by student. So then moving into some of the higher steps, step 6 teaches suffixes and consonant LE syllables. Step 7 is the soft sounds of C and G and new digraphs and trigraphs. Step 8 is the R-controlled syllables. Step 9, the double vowel syllables. And steps 10, 11, and 12 are the more complex rules for sound options and spelling. So how can Wilson be instructed? Wilson can be instructed in one-on-one instruction or individual or group instruction. So it's recommended that you begin teaching Wilson with just one student and work 2 to 3 times per week with that student, so that you become familiar with the lesson plan procedures and the language concepts. And then as you become proficient in teaching Wilson individually, it's advised that you moved on to teach in small groups. So when it's implemented as a remedial reading program, the groups can be limited to 3 to 5 students. But sometimes the program is also taught within remedial groups as large as 10 to 12 students, but it really depends on the training of the teacher or reading specialist, and then also the skills of the student and how quickly the students proceed. So parts 1 through 5 of your lesson plan. Part 1 has to do with sound cards, and it includes a quick drill of the phonemes with the teacher showing a sound card and the student naming the letters and corresponding sound. So keywords are always used with vowels and as needed with other sounds. Part 2 teaches and reviews concepts for reading. Blank cards and letter cards are used to teach phoneme segmentation and blending. Students are taught to segment sounds using a finger tapping procedure. And then beyond step 2, syllable and suffix cards are used to teach total word structure. And every lesson involves manipulation of cards to teach the word structure and practice reading. Step 3 is word cards, and skills learned in section 2 of the lesson are applied to reading single words on flashcards. And then review words are also included in the stack of cards that will be presented to the student. Step 4 is charting or wordless reading. Skills are applied to the reading of single words on a controlled word list in the student reader containing only those elements of word structure that are taught thus far. So in one-on-one lessons, the student is charted daily for independent success, and then in group lessons, students are charted before progressing to the next sub-step. And the list changes with each lesson so that students can't memorize the list. And then step 5 is sentence reading. These are, your word attack skills are applied to reading with sentences, and all sentences contain only the elements of the word structure that have been taught thus far. And here is a lesson plan this is an individual lesson plan, so you can see the step 1 is sound cards, quick drills. Step 2, teach and review concepts for reading. Step 3 is word cards. Step 4, word list reading. And step 5, sentence fluency, sentence reading. So then parts 6 through 8 have a major emphasis on encoding. So part 6 is the quick drill, and it's in reverse. So the letter formation is taught as needed, and every lesson includes a phoneme drill within the teacher saying a sound and the student having to identify the corresponding letter. Step 7 is teaching and reviewing concepts for spelling. Initially, the student will spell words with phoneme cards and blank cards, and then the students apply the finger tapping procedure to segment sounds for spelling. Beyond step 3, students use syllable and suffix cards. And then students will spell the words using the cards to sequence sounds and syllables and word parts. Part 8 is dictation or written work. Sounds, single words, and sentence dictations are included in this part. The teacher will dictate the sound, words, and sentences are controlled, and then they only contain the word structure elements that have been directly taught thus far. And the student will repeat the dictation prior to writing. Sounds and words are spelled orally before they're written, and a formal procedure is followed for independent sentence proofreading. And you can see on our individual lesson plan. So here's step 6, the quick drill in reverse. Step 7, the teach and review concepts for spelling. And then step 8 is the written work for the dictation. Parts 9 and 10 have emphasis on reading comprehension. So part 9 is passage reading, where the student will silently read a short passage with controlled vocabulary containing only the studied word elements. The student will retell the passage in his or her own words that are linked to a visualization of the passage, and then the student will read orally. Part 10 is listening comprehension and applied skills. So in this part of the lesson, the teacher reads a non-controlled text to the student, and the student uses visualization and retelling to develop comprehension skills at a higher level than current decoding. So here we have the controlled text passage reading for step 9, or part 9. And then part 10 is listening comprehension and applied skills. So that can be it could be a decodable text passage, or it can be a more advanced passage for listening comprehension. And then I also have just to see a group lesson plan. And it has the same thing, the sound cards, quick drill, the teach and review concepts, word cards, word lists, and sentence reading. And those are all steps 1 through 5. And then 6 through 6, 7, and 8. And then 9 and 10 for reading comprehension. And those are the lesson plans for Wilson reading. So then we move into question and weaving that also are incorporated into the lesson plans for Wilson. So the question and weaving, questioning techniques should be used throughout each lesson. You know, these concepts will be directly taught to students with cards in parts 2 and 7 of each lesson. They are, you know, you're teaching excuse me, I lost my train of thought. You're teaching consonants in a digraph, and you're also, you know, you're teaching that they stay together to make one sound, whereas consonants in a blend will each get sounded individually, and then they are blended together. So you should be asking questions such as, where is the blend? Where is the digraph? And how many sounds are in the blend versus how many sounds are in the digraph? So, you know, it's important to ask those questions and to, you know, weave the questioning throughout the lesson. Targeting trouble spots that's if a student has significant difficulty with a particular sound. Target that area in your lessons and use that, provide more practice so that the student becomes better at overcoming the area of difficulty, wherever that may be. That's just kind of addressing the area of difficulty in the lessons, because they all kind of run together. And then student progress and pacing. It's very critical to set a secure base when pacing. Some students may have little problem reading and spelling words, in step 1 and 2, but they should not move too quickly throughout the program. Even if students can read, they still need to practice the tapping and the segmenting of sounds, and so it's critical that they become good at segmenting sounds for spelling in order for them to kind of move through the program. So then finally your assessment and your data collection. We have post-testing, step post-testing. So at the end of every step, a student has to pass the post-test before progressing to the subsequent step. The post-test lesson plan is here. I have one of these, and this is a blank one. This is the post-test lesson plan, and it's basically assessing how the student is demonstrating knowledge of the skills that are taught. How are they doing in the sound cards, quick drill, or the manipulative cards, the word cards, the charting, the markup, and quick drill in reverse, manipulative cards, and then spelling tests. These are really assessing the skills that are being taught within the Wilson program. And then a Wilson progress record sheet looks like this. So, and this is, it shows each step individually. So steps 1.1 and through 1.6 are, written out exactly what is being assessed, and then how are they progressing through? Have they, when was it introduced? When did the student achieve accuracy within that skill or step or sub-step? And then the date that the student achieved fluency. When has the student mastered that step? And a lot of times this form can also be used for goal progress for students that have decoding goals in their individualized education plan. And then WADE, the Wilson Assessment of Decoding and Encoding, and fluency is administered at the end of each school year. So you can start the school year with a QRI, Qualitative Reading Inventory, and it just kind of gauges where the student is initially, and then you finish with the WADE, with the Wilson Assessment of Decoding and Encoding. And then, of course, I have my reference, Barbara Wilson, 2004, the Wilson Reading System Instructor Manual that I have. So thank you so much for listening to my presentation.